friends, and welcome to today's video of I moved my camera too far away so I can't read properly. Or, why are you wearing this weird ensemble? Well, that's because we are entering a new era on this channel called I Explain Things That You Probably already know about or don't know enough about. Tonight's topic is government. You know, the thing we all blame for all our problems in our lives. Anyways, I've done a bit of research, so let's go over it. There are some types of government you have heard of. The most famous one is probably democracy. If you haven't heard of democracy, you're living under a rock, because everyone has heard of democracy. Democracy is essentially the idea that everyone votes on everything. So, when we say our country is a democracy, we say that every citizen gets to voice their opinion on every matter. No society is a true democracy. Your government is feeding you lies. Most governments, including the US, have a liberal democracy. Now, a liberal democracy is where we elect representatives to vote and do things for us, but they have a constitution that protects the liberties of the citizens. Now, some governments actually do protect the liberties of the citizens. Others argue that we should even have liberties, freedoms, and protections. That's fun. Governments like this include most of Europe and the USA. And so we say liberal democracy because it frames us in a nice way. And does that mean we're all liberal? No, it's just a term. Liberal doesn't mean what you think it means. Thank you very much. Okay. Along with that, we have other types of democracy, which I didn't think were very important. The one I do think is interesting is there's a thing called a demarchy. Now, a demarchy is basically an idea of democracy where a lottery picks who should lead our government. So essentially, we just throw a pile of people who are probably maybe qualified and we put them in and then we decide that's how our leader is. So it's not really like we vote, it's just kind of random, but it's still democracy, because essentially it's not like there's an all-knowing ruler. It's like, okay, this is how we do elections. It's very weird, but very interesting, and I think a world led by that could be good, it could be extremely bad, we'll never know. We also have a totalitarian democracy, which has elected representatives that people don't really elect. So think of North Korea and how they have elections, but no one's really elected, so they can still call themselves a democracy, even though they're really not. Great. Now we move on to what I would call your basic split. Now you're probably wondering, what's the difference between a democracy and a republic? We'll get to that, but you're probably not wondering what's the difference between a monarchy and a republic. There are monarchies and republics, and this is the basic way to split up a society and its differences. Both came to light and are great examples if you think about ancient Rome, which had its period of the monarchy, the republic, and the empire. So, what's the difference? A monarchy has an absolute ruler who is in complete control. Now, this monarchy has a figurehead. It may not actually do much. Think of the Middle Ages or England now, but England now more so has a constitutional monarchy, so the Queen has like some actual control in Parliament, but not full control. Essentially, there's just one leader in full control, so there can still be elective monarchies, but there's not a system of checks and balances and a division of power, which is what a republic is. Every place that claims they are a democracy is actually a democratic republic, because in republics, there's elected officials who vote on issues, and there's a division of power, and there's also power constituted by laws and things, because essentially there's a constitution or a law or something that has it. There's also a people's republic, which is what China is, and essentially the law governs, and there's actually no like elected officials, which is wrong, and it's just kind of what it's called, so they can be kind of, you know, dictators in secret. You know, it's like how North Korea calls themselves a democracy. However, I would say that even though a republic sounds better, a republic still doesn't work, because you have to elect officials, and some people aren't going to be an informed voter, and they're going to listen to what their friend says and be like, oh, that's right, and then when they go to the polls, they're going to vote for that. Monarchies clearly don't work, because the Middle Ages kind of fell apart because people didn't like their rulers and yada yada yada. Essentially, the main governments that we have and think about today are flawed. Now you could say, oh, that's capitalism's fault. We'll get to capitalism a bit later. Or you could say, oh, that's like this person's fault, or that's this thing's fault. Or you could ask, why don't people care about their citizens? Which you'd be correct, but I would argue that people rule in their own self-interest. Now that we're going through this transition, we're moving on to the oligarchies. Oligarchies are governments ruled by small groups of people, and there's actually a bunch of different kinds of these, and I think they're all very interesting. If you want a prime example of an oligarchy, though, I would take us back to the Roman Empire, Kingdom, Republic, because all of that at its forefront had a Senate, and the Senate was a group of very wealthy Roman citizens, aka men, who basically controlled the empire without being the leader of it. So essentially it was all up to them, and they stayed until like the Roman Empire fell. They were just kind of in charge of it all. So we're gonna have a quick round where I go through the types of oligarchies. Aristocracy, ruled by the proletariat. If you don't know what the proletariat is, it's basically the common man. Geniocracy, ruled by the most intelligent. So, yeah, most intelligent people are jerks, so that's not gonna work. Aristocracy, nobility. It's different from monarchy, because you know how the ending of Game of Thrones was crap, and then, like, they had, like, oh, we're all gonna pick a ruler. That's essentially aristocracy. Meritocracy, people with knowledge lead, but it's also wise people, so I don't know what your definition of that is. And then we have creditocracy, strong. Critarchy, judges. I don't know, that could work. Nuocracy, the wise, philosophers. Your philosophy major will finally come in handy for something. Plutocracy, not the patriarchy, we'll get into that another time, because I don't want to upset people, but that's the dominant political party, so essentially America right now. Plutocracy, wealthy. I don't have time to explain why that one's wrong. Stratocracy, military service. The Roman Empire kind of at some point in it. Technocracy, educated people / tech experts. Now that actually could be good, but will it ever happen? Will we ever decide who's actually smart based on that? No! Timocracy, honorable people. So, Sugo from Avatar The Last Airbender. Theocracy, religious fleet. Now we have to actually explain something here. There are religious republics which are dominated by religious laws, but theocracies are more so ruled by a priest. You could think of the Vatican City, but there's also places like Islamic republics, which are actually a thing and governed by that law, so there's that. And then we have a blank note card, because yay! Now, after we're done with oligarchies, that note card out of the way, we move on to autocracy. I can't pronounce that word, but it's that big bad scary thing you've heard of. Or communism / dictatorships, not communism, that's something different. Where this is where one person has absolute power. What makes it different from monarchy? This person is kind of like their all-seeing eye, or it's ruled by a one-party state, so there's also that on top of it, because monarchy is just one exact complete rule. Good examples of this, Roman Empire, Nazi Germany. So, already places that have fallen apart because people don't like their ruler. Clearly, it doesn't work. Now, there's two types. There's a civilian dictatorship, and that's where one dude has absolute power. I don't have time to explain to you why you think that's wrong. Maybe it could be a good dude. People in power usually do what's in their own self-interest. Someone would have to be very altruistic to not do what's in their self-interest, and altruism doesn't exist in that many human beings, that it should be celebrated in the people that do. Anyways, there's also military dictatorships, and this is like regime-like power. It's great. The military rules. Yay! Now, let's go on. We have our pejoratives. What are pejoratives? They're other active factors that contribute to a government without actually being part of the government. They're basically private sectors interfering with the government, aka capitalism. We don't have time to go into why capitalism is fundamentally wrong, and most people disagree with me. I am liberal. Pejoratives. There's some that you need to know. There's a corporatocracy. This is kind of what's going on in India. You can look that more up, but a corporatocracy is basically ruled by corporations and how much they influence our private sector. We also have kleptocracy, which is another one that I have a real example. What's kleptocracy? It's like when your party of D&D rogues get too much power. It's basically a government run by thieves. So we kind of have this going on in Mexico and South America, except it's a narco-kleptocracy, which means ruled by like drug trades, because it's a problem with underground drug trade going on in South America and Mexico. Yeah, so that's kind of a thing there. We also have another quick round of pejoratives. We have a nuocracy, which is ruled by rational law. I don't know what rational means to you, but I know a lot of irrational picture. A cybersyncrasy. These are very interesting. It's actually the all-seeing eye who tells you what to do, and it was an experiment in Chile. Look it up. It's very fascinating. Bureaucracy. You know the DMV/BMV? I don't know where you're from. That's the rule by bureaus, and they're very well organized, which is great, but we all hate the DMV. Autocracy. It's the exact opposite. It's disorganized ideas, organizations. Anarchy. It's regime power, but it's split between two different groups who are always fighting on each other. See Somalia/Kenya. Oligarchy. Ruled by a crowd. Mob rule doesn't work. That's how the witches got burned. Plutocracy. Ruled by stupid, or at least qualified. Some people actually argued that this is every single society because there could be someone more qualified to lead. Now, do I think that's correct? Yes, probably. There's always someone more qualified, but does that person want to lead? I don't know. Apparently not wanting to be a good leader makes you a good leader. At Game of Thrones. Now we have neptocracy, and this is ruled by nepotism. See Jared Kushner / Robert Kennedy, although Robert Kennedy is pretty chill dude. Listen to his speeches. Bankocracy, ruled by banks. I don't want to be ruled by the person who has all my money. That's just scary and disturbing. Banana Republic. Now, I thought this was a store before I did research on this topic, but apparently I'm wrong. And if it is a store, it's a pretty weird store. This is basically a kleptocratic government that relies on the export of one first sector resource. A first sector resource is like grain. Look them up. So it got its name from a corrupted government that's main export was bananas. Yay! Moving on. Now we have property governments. Property governments are governments based on who owns the property. We have colonialism. Okay, so you know what Britain did to like almost everyone? Well, I guess Spain did this too to South America. Like when Britain went to India or Britain went to America, and it's like, yeah, we lay claim to this land and their goal is to help us. That's colonialism. You just gotta look it up. I feel like everyone knows what that one is. Communism. That's when the state owns every frickin' thing. Yeah, but essentially in communism, there's not really supposed to be a state, but it's like everyone owns every... It's strange, but there's equal shares. Socialism. It's where the workers are in charge of their own production, and then the state provides everything, like healthcare and stuff. So, yeah, so some people are like, socialism's wrong because companies wouldn't own things, and I get that, but it's also like, it's kind of nice, but I don't think it would work because socialism and capitalism are in direct opposites with each other, and people like to own the stuff they make. So... yeah, we have totalitarianism, which is land is ruled by the state and for the state. Great. We have tribalism. The best way to describe it is Native Americans had different tribes and they would lay claim to certain lands and they would trade with each other, have war with each other, but they didn't really have a central government because they would move around places. This is also where a band society comes into place. A band society is basically like a small group of people that has one leader who they picked in some sort of fashion. It's just a small version of society. Great. That's out of the way. So, what does this all mean? I don't know, but we have one more type of government to get to, and that is anarchy. I wouldn't say I'm an anarchist, but I do like the idea of having a perfect society where we don't actually need a government because everyone wants to help out with each other, but that's never going to be possible because there's two types of anarchy. There's one where it's every man for themselves, and it's just kind of like a war-torn, crazy area, or there's the type where everyone has institutions that they've made and we all come together and we help each other out with everything and we live in a peaceful society, which is actually the goal of communism. So you can have communist anarchists or you can have anarchists. And it's kind of interesting, but I still don't think it works. In a perfect society, anarchy would actually be the perfect solution, in my opinion. Now, is my opinion wrong? Yes, because the only government I've found that works is hive mind, so we should all go hive mind. We need to be the bees. We need to save the bees. God save the bees. Okay, thank you for watching me have a mental breakdown. There will be more videos like this. I think I'm going to do one about communism and one about Dungeons and Dragons. The communism one isn't me saying you should be a communist. It's a deep look into it because I borrowed the manifesto from someone. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe or unsubscribe. Bye.